Welcome to another episode of the 10-Minute Land Surveyor. I'm Dave Woolley. Today I'm going to talk about construction staking and the use of CAD drawings. It's commonplace now to use CAD drawings in construction staking, but as a surveyor, do you understand the responsibility and the liability of using those CAD drawings? Now, if you're working for a big engineering house and you're the survey department and you are there to support your engineering department, the lessons I'm going to talk about aren't going to apply to you because you're staking your own plans, and the responsibility in the engineering and the responsibility for the surveying is equal parts. The surveyor is not shouldering the responsibility for the engineering, or the responsibility sits in the same house. We're talking about surveyors that work off of construction plans that weren't designed by them. To understand this, let's talk about how work used to be done. It used to be that you would get a set of construction plans and they'd be rolled up, 200-page plan set, and the surveyor would be given a set of plans and you would pull them apart by discipline, or by phase. So you'd throw out the erosion control, the landscaping, a lot of the lighting except for light standards, and you would start with the demo, then rough grade plans, staking limits or clearing and grubbing limits, and you would break the plans in so that you weren't carrying around 200 pages. Then we were running, at that time, 3-person crews, and the party chief's job was actually to do all the calculations on these jobs. And so the party chief would be on the hood of a truck with a scale and a calculator and triangles. There were several tools that they used to generate construction calculations. So the other 2 people on the crew would be staking. And so the party chief would give them horizontal locations and they would give them cut sheets for the vertical. And this was commonplace. And the surveyors weren't too concerned about CAD as CAD was getting transitioned in, because the surveyors didn't work in CAD for this purpose. And they didn't need CAD to do staking. Well, as the technology evolved and through the recession of the early 90s, when we came back in the mid-90s, the slogan was "Stay alive till 95." Because it was really tough times. Well, when we came back, there was 2-person crews. And so if one person is on the hood of a truck doing calculations, the other person's basically tying up chaining nails or basically killing time. So the model changed, and what the model was is you had one person in the office doing all the calculations, and then the 2 people in the field, which were typically signatory, cost more money than an office person, they would do the staking. And then it got to the point where the field people didn't even carry plans around, and that's a whole different story. So that was how we got there. Well, the office person understood CAD, and the engineers started skinning up the plans, meaning they didn't have all the necessary information to do the staking. Well, what does that mean, necessary information? Well, when we used to stake off plans, we had a few different things we did. Anything that had a alignment, center line, or was relative to the center line, usually of a street. And so you would have stations of the street, and then you would have offsets. You would have a center line stationing and an offset to the water line, an offset to the sewer line, an offset to the curb line. And so you would set up stations and offsets, and that's how you did your work. And I talked about it in the chaining video, how you would move over to the line and then you would stake on that offset line. We didn't do radial staking, but then even when we did do radial staking, the plans were still set up with a station and offset because some of the technology allowed us to put alignments in and stake by station and offset, and that's how we did it. We didn't really do radial staking as much. It transitioned to radial staking. That's a different story. So what we would do is we would station and offset. Then in areas where we didn't have center lines, like the grading plan I'm going to show you here in a second, we had grid ticks. And what the grid ticks were is they were on even northings and eastings. And, well, let me just show you. On screen here is a grading plan. I'll zoom out a little bit. You can see there's some structures on here. It's regenerating, but let me show you what we have. So this is a grid tick. Now I can tell you this grid tick is nonsense. It's basically somebody told somebody didn't know what they were used for to put grid ticks on. How do I know it's nonsense? Well, first of all, I see here that it shows hundreds. Grid ticks, if you look at this particular plan set, it's a 40 scale, and So your grid ticks, they'd be good within about a half a foot at a 40 scale. And so when you look at it, what the process was, and this is another thing I can tell you that this is a bunk set, is you see that north's at 45, and look how the grid tick runs. It runs to the top of the sheet and the bottom of the sheet. A real grid tick done at the time, intended for use, would actually look like this, because it's supposed to run north, south, east, west. Why? Because you're scaling in northings and eastings for staking. So when you see this, there's a couple different things you see here. When you see hundredths, you don't see even feet here, because they would try to stay on even feet. And you see hundredths, you know this is just bunk. And when the grid tick isn't oriented in north, south, east, west, because you're scaling in coordinates. But the process would be is you'd take a triangle, maybe a triangle like this, and you can tell this triangle is well over 35 years old because it still has tape on it for drafting on Mylar, so you didn't smear the ink. Another story for another day. Anyway, you would lay it in the grid, and you would draw these straight lines, and you would grid the paper out, grid the plans out, and then you would take a scale, something like this, and you would scale down your northings, and then you would have similar grid ticks. Like if you look, I'll scale out this plan and see. So here's the other grid tick. And see, they wouldn't be at 45s. Again, they wouldn't look like this, because this is all bunk. You see I have 1 foot and 4 foot and hundredths, but I would scale up this line for northings, and I would scale over this line to eastings. And these grid ticks would be 200 feet apart, and you would check your scale, and you had northings and eastings, and you would draw grids throughout the sheet. So then, let's say I'm going to stake this storm drain line over here. And you see here I have I'll just walk you through the plan. I have a 12-inch storm drain line, 2%. I have an invert grade here. So what you would do is you would get into this drawing, and you would scale a northing and an easting to this point. And then what would happen is you would have a dimension here somewhere, right here. So you have this this L6, and that's the length of the line, L6, and down here you have L9, and you have an invert grade to check, because you need to be able to get from here to this invert grade. But what you would do back at that time, you see there's no other dimensions here, and you'll see that, how do I get these laterals? Well, what you would do is you would scale in a coordinate here. You would scale in a coordinate at the other line, and the reason is to check your coordinates, and you would inverse back, and you would hold the L6 for length, but you wanted to make sure that your scaled coordinates, that's how you checked your scaled coordinates. And then you would have a grade break, and you went to a 6-inch storm drain at 1%. And so you would scale in this point here with a northing and easting, and then you'd go L7, L8, and you would do grade sheets based on these inverts. And that's how we would stake things. And it, half a foot or a foot was plenty good enough. Well, I haven't seen a set of plans with grid ticks in a long time. These just came across my desk recently, and I kind of laughed when I realized somebody was at least trying. So what happens? Well, what happens is you request the CAD drawings, because that's how the engineers do their work now. And you go in and you snap points, and you get very precise, to the 100th coordinates, and you stake them, and that's how you do your job. Well, that's all fine and dandy until something goes wrong. Well, let's step back one. You get the job, you realize that the plans are not stakeable. There's no controlling elements there. There's no stations, there's no offsets, there's no grid ticks, there's no relationship to the property line, and now you are required to stake this. So how do you do it? You send over a request to the engineer, and you say, I need the AutoCAD drawings for this project so that we can stake it. And they send over a release. And this is a typical release that I see here. And what you see is, says here, release an agreement for digital files. And this is just a job that we were working on. Here you go. And they talk about, please note, by opening these files, you're confirming your agreement to all terms and conditions. So as soon as you open these files, you're in agreement. and they talk about the file types and viruses and things like this. But here's where the real good stuff gets in here, right here. And I'll let you read that, but what it says is the undersigned agrees to make no claim and hereby waives to the fullest extent permitted by law any and all claims, causes of action, or any nature against SVA. SVA is a big architect house. Officers, directors, and everybody else under the sun. Furthermore, the undersigned shall, to the fullest extent permitted by law, defend and indemnify and hold SVA harmless from any and all claims, suits, damages, losses, expenses, attorney's fees, and everything else under the sun. So you open those CAD drawings, you are completely responsible for that design. And frankly, surveyors don't understand architecture. They would be architects or architecture, and they don't understand engineering, or they would test and they would do that. And yet you're going to take the responsibility for this, and you're going to hold them harmless and defend them if something goes wrong, all to use the CAD drawings. And this next line, I'll bet you a lot of surveyors don't know what this means. And electronic files are not contractual files. And it goes to talk about the difference of the files. And it comes down in here and it talks about the conflicts that could arise. They're making no representations regarding the accuracy or completeness of the electronic files you receive. So here it is. It might not be worth squat. You're going to be, but we don't care because you're responsible for it, because you're staking it. And there you go. Please sign this and send this back to us. And right here, agreed and accepted. And you're going to sign this, and it says, by signing below, the undersigned represents and warrants. You're offering a warranty that you have read and understand all the terms and conditions bound hereby. That is absolutely asinine. You do not ever sign one of these releases for the CAD drawings because you don't need the job. Let's walk back through the example I gave you. $10 million construction job. We're talking about $200,000 max survey job. You're talking about 10% profit, 20% profit max, and that's if everything works out right. And you're going to take the liability for any component on a $10 million job. Well, there's nothing cheap, especially if it's an extra. So you're going to sign, you're going to take these CAD drawings, you're going to lay it on the ground, and the minute something's wrong with the design, it doesn't matter, you are liable for it. And frankly, you deserve whatever comes your way if you signed off on these. If you're working off CAD drawings that weren't generated in-house and you sign a release, you should be going the other way. You should be sending them a document to sign before you use those drawings. Anything less, complete dumbassery. So do not sign these CAD release drawings. Do not work off CAD drawings. Well, what's the solution, Dave? I'm in the construction business, and I've been using CAD drawings all this time. What's the alternative? Well, what the alternative is you have contractual documents, which are the signed, hard copy, permitted drawings. And you send in a request for information from the engineer, from the architect, and you ask for staking specific information. You want the coordinates to those drawings, or you want a warranty or something associated with those CAD drawings, a station, an offset, or something similar. So I'm telling you here now, put away your clown shoes, pack away the mini bikes, and do not ever sign a release for a CAD drawing. If you do, you deserve what happens to you. Thank you and have a nice day.